Welcome to another broadcast of the Competitive Edge. And today, Friday, we're going to be looking at the phase of self mastery. And I promise you that we're going to have a pretty dynamic conversation today as we look at self and we look at society. We perhaps will look at some of the development that are happening in the developed world to shake, you know, your sense of confidence and how you see people in the world. So it's a pretty interesting conversation today. Today I have two dynamic persons in studio. I have Shivani, and Shivani, as you know, she is a project management practitioner and extremely talented in our field. And we have Peter Scott, and he's the guy that's going to talk to you that if you don't have a master plan for life, you ain't start living. So you need to have your master plan. In case you don't know me, I'm the author of several books. One of the books that I've written, my most recent book, is Master the Sales Communication Process. So if you want to know how to master the sale and how to enhance your pitch, I want to encourage you to get that book. There's several books, and I'll talk about it just now. But just before I get into talking to you about the books, I want to give Shivani and Peter an opportunity to introduce themselves. So if you're looking at this program for the first time, you will now have a much clearer, better understanding of these two iconic personalities that is before you. So I'm going to start with Shivani. Do introduce
Thanks.
yourself.
Thanks,
You're welcome.
Gary. And good morning to everyone, or whatever time you're looking at the program, as you say, right?
Yeah.
So, welcome. Who am I? I believe in project management. Everything can be considered a project, but of course, you have to know what is a project. A project is different from an operation. Look at a project as a whole. Look at things that you're doing, whether it's in life, whether it's in your profession, and try to solve it through project management thinking, through a project management mindset. It's made up of multiple, you could do multiple projects, and you'll be able to um, find what the solution is all about. So that's who I am. Project management, taking something from the beginning to the end, and of course looking at how this can work even to sustain it as well. So Shivani Sinran is my name. Thank you.
Yep. And there you had it, Shivani Project Management. And Shivani, very quickly, I can recall many years ago, um, studying project management, it does leave you with a different way of thinking. And I could recall I was in a class and I was teaching business to the students, and I was saying you want to put yourself in a position of strength where you can see the beginning and the end and the in between of a given process. And the guys have said to me, but sir, how can you see the beginning and the end and the in between? It sounds like, something difficult. But that's exactly what project management is. It really allows you to see the beginning and what you want to accomplish and all the tools that you need to achieve the end results that you want. And that's the beauty about project management. So if you don't know about project management, I encourage you to touch base with Shivani or reach out to us, and we'll be happy to put you in contact with Shivani. Peter, all to you. You mute, Peter. You mute.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
There we go. There we go. There we go. Make all the difference.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Peter Gus Scott is the name, and there's a story behind the name. My lived for many years as Scott until I realized that that is my mother just take off the GU, so I decided to replace it in my adult life. Um, Peter Gus Scott is my name, and my focus, my passion really is to get individuals to recognize the value of their life story, the essence of where they're coming from, the experiences that they have had throughout their life. And so much is left on the table when we just focus on our professional development, because even our professional development, there is a story, there is a process in how we got there. Whatever achievement that we have in our lives, it is a process. And so, what we do encourage individuals is to tap into the story that gets you to where you are. Every superhero that is in that came out of Hollywood, the Hollywood story, they have a backstory, and it is people are not interested in Superman because of Superman. They're interested in Superman because of the story, what caused Superman to become Superman. So you are a Superman in whatever it is that you are doing, or a Superwoman, but what people will be drawn or attracted to is how you become this person that you have become. And so that is what we allow individuals to understand. The journey that gets you to that place of admiration is something that other people are interested in because they see you for the beauty in your life, and they are saying, I love that. How can I do that in my life as well? So we help people to do that through what we call the Legacy Chronicles publishing program. Additionally to that, as Shivani mentioned, that there is a project that can be approached, life can be approached as a project. Everything that we do is actually a project. That when we understand how to begin with the end in mind, and how we're able to break up this big focus, this big vision that we have into components, smaller pieces, that I call master plan development, master planning, and life happens in 4 dimensions. And when we understand these 4 dimensions and have a strategic approach to it through master planning, it makes life all the more easier. And so this is my passion, and I think it is also my mission to get individuals to understand this subject matter. And that's Peter Goscott in a nutshell.
All right, thanks for that share, Peter and Shivani. I want to talk today a little bit about the BFC, which is the Business Finance Consultants. Now, we want to encourage the general public, not only in the US, but the Caribbean and other parts of the world, to contact us to position yourself to be a BFC, a Business Finance Consultant. We are doing a lot of work in the US right now, and while we are not able to bring US capital to the Caribbean and the wider world, guess what? We have a solution. And we will really help the wider Caribbean to access what we call smart capital raise. I will not get into that today, but we are now putting out a call for persons from across the world to reach out to us to position yourself to become a BFC. On this platform, you will learn a lot about financial instruments, whether it be debt, equity, credit, creative financing, hard money, and smart capital raise. And your understanding of this means that you can help hundreds and perhaps thousands of persons who are in business that needs capital to grow and scale their business to access the much needed capital. On our platform is not just about working with you for you to access the capital. That's only one element of it. We're going to work with you for you to understand financial instruments, work with you to help you to access capital, work with you to help you to develop smart ways of leveraging the capital, and most of all, giving you the tools to be able to mitigate debt. So this is a unique ecosystem that I want to encourage you to reach out to us so you can learn the platform. All right, and that is the BFC. This is our gift to you in 2024. To study these programs can cost you a lot of money, but we're going to do this for you at zero cost, and we're going to ensure that you are well positioned to cash flow optimize. Along with this, you will be learning a whole lot about how to sell yourself, how to build your personal brand, and how to build your corporate brand so you can get out there and position yourself to build wealth. So that's just a little bit that I want to share today on the BFC. Now, I want to talk to you today also about some of the things that I do. I represent a very unique platform that we call the Bestseller Portal. And I'm just going to take you to that portal now, because I want you to at least see some of what we are doing. The Bestseller Portal is a unique platform of learning, all right? And I'm going to take you to three things to just help you to understand the portal. So on the portal, you have home, you have services, and you have products. You have membership, events, and you have more. I want you to click on products. And when you click on products, you're going to have a menu of subject areas that is going to drop down on your left-hand side. You have ebooks, you have greetings cards, you have ticket, you have promotion, business law, health, religion, leadership, a range of different things. But I also want you to now press on ebooks. And when you press on ebooks, you will see a range of books that we have written. You have, I think, is 11 volumes of the master the sales communication process. And if you look at screen, you can see I'm scrolling. You have 11 unique books here for you to learn from. This would really help you to understand how to position yourself in sales and how to come out as a leader. But I want to also introduce you to another product, which is greetings cards. And one of the reasons we did this greetings card division is because we talk a lot about friendships. We talk a lot about relationships. And sometimes it's not doing the big things, it's doing the small things that can, make big difference in people's lives. So we want to give you an opportunity to do that small thing that can have massive ripple effect in your relationship. So when you go to this website and you go to greetings card, you can see that we have multiple greetings cards. We have greetings cards for your wife, for husbands, for girlfriends and boyfriends, and most of all, you have greetings cards for friendship. And friendship, I do believe, is everything as the card is saying. And I want to encourage you to go to this site, press on greetings card, and you can send your friend, a greetings card and really express how much you care about that friend. All right, because people rise and fall on friendship. I'm going to say this: you rise and fall on friendship, the right friendships. When you have the right friendship on your side, guess what? It's the right move to eliminate struggle and stress out of your life. So I'm going to pause there for now. And today we're going to be talking about a pretty interesting topic, and that's the face of self mastery. The face of self mastery. And Peter, we have talked a lot. Shivani, we have talked a lot. Over the last 2 weeks, we have been doing a deep dive into this particular topic of self mastery. And one of the things that I talk about is the self image theory, which looks at four self: the ideal self, looking glass self, self image, and the real self. And I'm reflecting back on this self image theory because of some of the things that we've seen playing out in the world today. There are leaders that we believe are anchored in their sense of self and in their belief, only to be awakened to the fact that they are not really anchored in the truth that you taught um, was their truth. And that is saying to me that the people that we believe have that true sense of self and is really anchored in the real self, they're only just flowing from that looking glass self from several different perspectives. They are projecting an image that they believe that is what the public wants. And that once you're projecting an image to the public that doesn't represent the real you, you're flowing from that looking glass self. You're that people pleaser. And I mean, over the last this is nothing new what is happening in the world today, but it's certainly concerning as we begin to talk about the importance of self mastery in the 21st century, the importance of self mastery and the role it plays in leadership, the role it plays in family, and the role it plays in community. And I just want us to have that broad conversation around some of these issues. And today, I do believe that the man that doesn't know himself is a man that is lost at sea, is a ship that is at sea that doesn't have a captain, a plane that's in air that doesn't have a strong pilot, and that's a recipe for disaster. And hence the need for great leaders who are true to themselves and can truly flow in what we call self mastery. I'm going to open up that for some conversation. What are your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah. I heard Shivani said something when she opened, and I just wanted her to, before we go into the further into the discussion, I wanted her to just to elaborate a little bit on it, a bit the difference between operation and project. Can you just elaborate a little bit, Shivani, what you meant by that?
Right. Thanks, Peter. So, a project, as we know, you have a beginning and you have an end. And eventually, when it's finished, when the project is, as we say, completed, and we hope that when we say we completed, that, we have achieved the deliverables and the requirements that we have, set out to at the beginning. Now, when you have this project, a lot of times we just look at project management as a silo, right? When you complete the project, that's it. And I've worked on a lot of pilot projects. And when this aspect is not done, you just have a lot of these projects all over and you're not seeing what the real essence of the project can be. So the project needs to become operationalized. For example, if you're building a house or you finish, you're building some type of a apartment complex. When you've completed, so you are a project manager and you have constructed this, you have done what you have to do, but now it got to be operationalized and to maintain by a facilities manager now. And there is a disconnect between the project manager or the project and the operational part. So when you're bringing now a facilities manager, the facilities manager might say, but there is not a room for custodians to store things, right? There was not a design. We want now to implement a building management system in order to have water sensors. But these things were not done because it's not operationalized. You don't know now about the air condition. You want to change a part, but wait, I don't have a register. So from a project to the operation, there's always some type of disconnect. Now, that's an example in facilities management, in more hardcore construction and those type of areas. But even for ourselves, as you would know, and I think that's the conversation you're coming into for yourself, you start off your whole thinking as a project, and then how do you operationalize it? So yes, life is a series of projects, as you will always say, Peter, but at the end of the day, projects could be all over the place, all over, airy-fairy, as we say, and you're not bringing it home for continuity. In other words, it's not being sustained. So you may just start up a project, you feel you've completed it. Yeah, you may have completed whatever the objective is, if it's for your home or what have you. But what about operationalizing it for continuing? And I'm so happy you brought up this convo too, because it reminded me of something yesterday that I was discussing with a couple of students over my favorite thing, right? Coffee, right? And the person was telling me something that really sparked. You're hired as a manager or as a leader in your organization, but you took over the job from somebody. So you took over the job from someone, but you don't want now to continue with what they have done, right? You say, well, I wasn't involved. And you just set in your own part. Now, a lot of leaders may think like that. They may say that is not what they were. They don't know about the past, right? And they now come to start over. But if everybody starts to think like that, Peter, what will happen? Mm-hmm. Right? There will be no continuity.
Yeah.
So, project management must speak to operations. This is a two-part, I can't. So if you're handling your normal operations and I came in here just to do something with project management, it must have that type of continuity, this conversation. So a lot of times leaders come in, people may say, well, this was a project before, now we have to operationalize it. We have to get all the resources. And say no, because they don't know. right? They don't know what they don't know, but people can't be like that, right? In real leadership, you can't be like that. You have to have continuity. So three aspects I spoke about there, Peter. I sure you got all already.
Yeah, because and the reason, I asked that question, just for clarity,
Hmm.
just the subject matter itself, but then the application of it, even in the subject that we're
Yeah.
talking about right now, because we will talk about life as a project, but then the application of life as a plot project is what a lot of persons will fall down on, because understanding just the concept that life is a project. And if we should just shift this into the subject matter that we're speaking about today, and Gary,
Hmm.
highlighted about mastering self, and we do know that self is a project. Yes, self is a
Yeah.
project. And I say you, I know that we will look at ourselves. And yes, I'm a project because I want to achieve and I want to advance as I go through life. And I have to break down the understanding of my life as a project. But one of the operational issues that people will run into, which is what Gary's talking, alluding to, even with this broadcast. When we say to you, you, who is the you that we're talking about? And the definition of you, to manage is something that, we, a lot of thought is not put into the understanding of who you are. And if we don't understand who we are, so how are we going to have a mode, a MO, a mode of operation? And how do we, when we look at ourselves, this we see ourselves as um this person, this one individual. But the one individual has to be broken down if we need to understand how we're going to really master this individual that we refer to ourselves as the me. When I'm talking about me, or when I'm looking at somebody and calling them you, if we do not understand who we're talking about or what that concept is all about, then we're going to have it's going to be a struggle in how we operate. So when we're beginning to break that down, we're going to understand that, we are three, when I say me, I'm talking about three different concepts. We understand that, yes, I have a body that I see, but inside of that body is a soul, and there is also the human spirit. And understand that the human soul even breaks down into six other components. Then it's a lot to manage. And if we do not understand that, then this kind of disconnect that you're mentioning about the project, between the project and the operation, we get into all kinds of problems. And then this is why we can see why there's so much problems in the world, because if I don't even understand who I'm talking about when I say me, then I'm gonna have other problems when I'm talking about somebody else, which is who has their own complexities. And then when we talk, pull it out. When we're talking about the various dimensions of life, now it becomes even more complicated when you're talking about mastering self, mastering my personal life. And I'm not living in a vacuum. I'm living with people. I'm living with family. I'm living with friends. And then when I do not get the first component right, and then that is, becomes more complicated when other persons and other people's personalities and the meanness of other persons get involved. And then we take that to the third dimension of the community. And now we understand why the world is in such distraught as it is. So, usually I would say, just as you mentioned, when we understand the difference between the project and the operation, when you break it down and to understand that there has to be that flow of understanding, the sum of the whole, and then how the sum, the smaller parts of the whole operate, because there are patterns and there are simplicities. There are, if we get it right in one small area, it is the same principle that can be applied throughout. So as you mentioned, that manager comes and he doesn't care about what happens before. He's just want to take it up from where he is to move forward. In a similar sense, even with us today, we live in cycles. And if I do not care about who I am this morning, and I think that, and I'm going to think that I'm the same person that went to sleep last night, even as minute of that situation is, I'm going to have a problem. Because getting up this morning, I am not the same person I was yesterday, because there are different stimuli. We get up this morning. I heard, just to read the newspaper or to hear something this morning, that impacts me. That new bit of information has shifted my whole psychology from what I was yesterday. And when we do not understand these, conditions and situations that there's these stimuli, but when we do understand them, there is this sense of congruity. There is this sense of flow. There's a sense of, okay, taking it from where it was to where it is and where we want it to go, and understanding the intricacies in how we're going to apply these small components. And as I repeat, and this is why, when we understand the concepts of taking first things first, the laws of first things first, and taking charge of the small elements, because when we master the small elements, it is easier now to replicate those applications as we move along through the more complicated matters. So having that understanding of, the difference between the project and the operation applied to self-mastery, it can make a world of difference in how we navigate ourselves through life. I hope I didn't, say the things that anything.
No, but one other point to Peter that I wanted to mention. So perfect. I like what you said in the beginning there, that you have to have continuity, right? You get up in the morning, you're not the same. You're not the same. There are other factors that will affect you, things that you didn't know before. And that's a wonderful way to look at it, right? When you start to look at life like that, as you say, self-mastery, that's a conversation that we're having. When you start to look at life like that, you'll realize that you're not in a silo,
Right.
and things will change. So you will be able to move from projects to continuity. Very, very, very good. And that is a project management thinking, that what you just said as PM, that's project management all the way. Now, just to add something to your convo as well, when you're looking at yourself, a project is made up of different aspects or different parts, where the synergy, as we continuously saying, it's the sum of everything, right? The sum of the parts, and everything must be interconnected. There's a particular tool that we'll talk here, which is known as product analysis. Did you analyze yourself as a product, right? You're a product, you're a person, and you break it up into different parts, which is what you were saying too. You break it up into different parts, and you ensuring that you have the connectivity there. Now, there may be certain parts, and that's bringing it into Gary's conversation as well. You have different parts, and each part now must be analyzed to know if you need to improve on that part. You need to improve on that. That's where the whole self-mastery really comes in. So my little 2 cents in everything you're saying here is, let's look at product analysis. Look at the entire aspect of yourself as a product, because that is what you're bringing out to the world. That's what you want people to see. And do you have that connection? Now, if you're talking from a spirituality point, you might talk about the balance, right? Is everything in balance? Right? As if everything is in balance, and something may be not in balance, and you need to bring it back into balance. So in projects, it's life. Two key takeaways here from our conversation. Projects turning into operations. And then when you look at yourself as a project, look at yourself What is the product that you are putting out there? Is everything connected? What about
Right.
the business? It's gonna flow. It's gonna flow, no?
Yeah. Uh, a lot of great points are being made. And I love, Shivani, how you started off. You started off by looking at, billing the apartment rental as the project, and the continuity could be found in the systems that you're putting in place to manage that apartment, because the management of the apartment is going to be a continuous process going on for many, many years. So I like that analogy. And I do believe also if we can associate project management and operational management to life, and the possibility exists that one may be able to enjoy a better quality of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I'm going to say this also because what research has shown is that people never grow beyond their sense of self, never. And if you want to enhance your sense of self and bring yourself to that point of self mastery, you should make it a project,
Yeah.
right? And when you make the your efforts to master who you are a project, here is where you ask yourself I am today, and where I want to be tomorrow, and what's going to take to get me there. And here is where the master plan comes into play, because in your master plan it might reflect, hey, this is my level of success, but I want to take my success national. I want to take my success regional. I want to take my success international. But if you don't have that strong sense of self,
Hmm.
self mastery to be able to operationalize that bigger vision, it's not going to happen. So I think that self or leadership can be found in your efforts to master who you are. But what I'm seeing also across the world, I mean, while it is easy for us to discuss self mastery, it is something that I've learned that most people struggle with. Most people struggle with who is that sense of self. Most people struggle with, believing in self. Most people struggle with, the doubts and the fear that really prevents them from coming to that point where they can truly master who they are. Perhaps the conversation is not as common as it should be,
Hmm.
where it's common that we can get together, we can talk about, and regardless of where you came from, regardless of where you're at, you're a human being, and as a human being, you have the potential to self actualize. You have the potential to master who you are. Again, I keep saying when we talk these conversations, it's not divorced from business, it's not divorced from life, because again, the research is showing that people that really know themselves and they're comfortable in their skin, they function better throughout the business ecosystem. They function better.
Yep.
And that is something that's one of the reasons why we have these conversations. It's about speaking on issues that we really believe can help people to find their competitive edge.
Right.
Or finding yourself is, in my belief, the very first step, all right, in finding your competitive edge, finding yourself. And that has to become a major project of your life in your life. Just like how you're going to be attempting to start a business and you're going to develop your cash flow projection, your cash flow game plan, and you're going to build all of these things. When it comes to your life, you need to have that master plan that is focusing on you. Um, but I want to be just a devil advocate here a little bit. I have seen great minds, and I say great minds without any hesitation and any doubts, who have developed their master plan, who appears to be flowing in that true sense of self, but they're self-sabotaging. It appears as though they're self-sabotaging. So I don't know if that sense of self gets pollutes somewhere down the line. And I think, I don't know your thoughts on that, my friends. You can
Yeah.
have that strong. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So something just came to my mind with that conversation, right? Could it be, right? When you say you lose yourself, right? Because that's what you're saying. Sometimes you lose yourself and you're a great mind and everything like that. You know, is what we were saying too. Sometimes people forget for continuity, for operationalizing. So you so thinking about it as a project and you know your whole mind, but you don't even know that's how you're thinking, but you're thinking about it like that. And you're not thinking about forever and continuing this thing. So, you know, you just got really good at something and you're good, but you forget that there's another aspect of it, which is how do you continue? How do you want people to continue seeing you? How do you want people to continue seeing you? So there's a disconnect again between yourself, you perfected yourself, and you feel that is it. That's the outcome. That's it. You reach. And how do you continue that people will always see you like that, or that you not even see you, that you are able to portray that about yourself? So projects again turning into operations, and there's a disconnect there. We call it sustainable benefits plan and sustainable transition plan. How do you transition? So you know, I think we had a conversation on that as well, on Maslow hierarchy, you know, and you reach self-actualization, but you really reach the person. If you sometimes if you really didn't reach, you feel you reach, but you didn't reach.
And,
I
and,
think
Yeah.
and Gary, if we could, utilize one of the words that you use so much to describe, business and what we're doing, ecosystem, right? The concept of an ecosystem. Because when we're a part of an ecosystem, what we have to understand is that there are laws that governs the ecosystem. No one component within that ecosystem can think that it is it. And what is cancer, by the way? Cancer is when a cell decide that, you know what, I'm not going to go according to the ecosystem that I'm a part of. I'm going to do my own thing. It becomes so full of itself, because the component of self, you understand,
yeah,
is a very good thing when it is placed in its rightful place. Self is a beautiful thing when I understand that I serve the greater good, not of serving me, but I serve the ecosystem. The minute I think that I am the ecosystem, we are running into serious problems. And I think that in a mastery, in even the sense of mastery, when a person becomes so good at what they do,
Yeah.
they feel now that, look, I am
They're a
the,
god unto themselves.
yes,
yeah,
that is now where they begin to disintegrate, begin to make mistakes, and they become cancerous in the way how they think, in the way how they operate, and anything that is attached to that now becomes start deteriorating. And the human person tends to fall into that situation. We look into the world, as you mentioned, great minds, and every generation we see somebody, some rising star who have accomplished so much, who have attained so much, who have contributed so much. And then we see it in the on the basketball court, we see it in business, we see it in the religion,
Amen.
platform. It runs throughout society. And I think, that is, as tapping into our conversation, there is so much that with the mastery of self has to be mastered. We have to realize in the mastery of self that the greatest threat to self is self. The greatest demise that anyone can encounter is our own self. And when we do understand that, then we realize that my greatest understanding that I am my greatest enemy, then self mastery is very, very much important for us to keep a watch, not over the person, the threat that comes from outside, but the threat that comes from within. And when we do understand these realities, then it puts us into certain mindsets that we have to realize that self mastery can only be continued with a certain sense of thinking, humility, and when these kind of practices comes in, I'm a part of a ecosystem, and doing well in serving the ecosystem requires that I have certain mindsets about myself. I must be willing to be corrected. I must be willing for somebody to tell me when I'm going wrong, because nobody just break off and do crazy thing by themselves. It means that they have been overriding the warnings. There are little warnings that tap on the shoulder, that influence within the mind that is saying you may be going in the wrong way. Check it, and we keep overriding that. Before you know it, we are way off, so far off course that it takes some great big operation to get us back on chart. And mastering the self, understanding who the self is, and putting into those checks and balances to ensure these components, these smaller components of self is kept in place, is so important.
Well, Peter, you've said a lot, and what I'm taking away from what is being said is that self mastery has multiple phases, from the standpoint that self mastery, when it is nurtured on solid grounds for the ecosystem, it serves the interest of the collective. But when self mastery becomes polluted, like we have seen happen across various sectors, the music industry, the religious sector, sports and entertainment, it tends to affect not only those who are responsible for inflicting hurt, but also it affects the victims and many other. It affects society as a whole, because it shifts societal belief and confidence in systems that we believe was established to serve in the interests of the collective. I know that we are not necessarily pointing or calling names or speaking directly to issues, but and we are deliberately doing so. But we can say that what we're seeing in the world today, in terms of great leaders who the world has become accustomed to, and who the world has been taught that these are figureheads to look up to emulate, and to follow, um, our world can be shattered. I mean, because when you look at some great people that you perceive to be great leaders, and you recognize that what you're being seen all the time was just the smoke screen. And what you were being introduced to is just the sheep, the wolf that was in sheep clothing. It significantly undermine your belief in things that you should be having tremendous confidence in, and that could be a very devastating, um, you know, attack on society. So what we're doing here is to say that, and it is said, you know, power corrupt and absolute power, how the term goes, right? And we've seen an element of that playing out in self mastery. So as we dig into this conversation of finding self and mastering self, we are committed to that process. And even in the rollout of our training program, is to nurture leaders that have a sense of self, that is anchored in their sense of self, and they are not receptive to being polluted,
Right.
that sense of self, um, in a way that is going to go and inflict hurt on society. And Peter, I want to add something else here before I drop the mic. What I'm seeing happen also, Peter, in a number of cases, there's a saying that the hurt hurts other. When you're hurt, you what your way of escaping that hurt is to go out and victimize other people. And I'm seeing a whole lot of that because what I'm seeing, and we're speaking in parables here, people are clever enough to know what's happening. There are young souls who become part of an institution um, that should have been looking out for them. And the institution take advantage of them and they become hurt. But in becoming hurt, they also experience benefits because the ecosystem that they went into propelled them upwards. Now that they're upward and they're in a position of strength and they are now at that point of some degree of, you might want to call it self-mastery, they now turn around and do the same thing that was done to them. And that cycle of hurt continues. We see it in a big superstar that was caught and locked up recently, and we thought he was an icon, and he definitely was an icon. But we heard all the trauma, and today we are hearing a whole lot of that. So, in other words, the last thing that I'm going to say here on that is that as we expand conversation on the concept of self-mastery, we are doing this fully aware that there's two coins to self-mastery. There's two faces of that coin. On one side, there is one that is following a principle that represents collective interest. And on the other side of that face of that coin, there's complete polluted intention. Polluted, intention is attaining a level of success that is highly polluted. I'm going to pause there for now. But I think self-mastery is something that we all should strive for. But as Peter would have said, how do we ensure that it remains sanitized? It remains pure. And regardless of what, we become true to what we believe in. All
But
right.
I just wanted to add something here, Gary, right? We're talking about self-mastery, and just
Yeah.
the word itself, it makes you think that when you will be a master of self, you'll be a master of self. And I generally don't like that word, right? So I personally, I believe it's a practice. You all know I'm going to say that, right?
You
It's
become a god unto yourself, right?
the term itself, I don't believe in it. Mastery.
Okay, I got you.
So practice. So self-practice. So when you look at practice, you'll realize that is what you said too, Peter. You get up in the morning, you're not the same, and you have to continuously, you have to remember that. So you have to practice this thing. So food for thought.
Because you're right, Shavana, because the very term itself sets you up for failure. The very term, because you now begin to drink your own coffee, because drink your own Kool-Aid, because you think I've arrived. And the moment you think that you have arrived is the moment that there is a downfall. And it's very important. The service, and even to serve self. And when we understand, the terminology of, and we talk about it from time to time, about being selfish. You have to become selfish sometimes, in the sense where the attendant on the aircraft will tell you that if the cabin pressure should drop, make sure that you serve yourself first, so that you will live long enough to serve the person beside you. Now, when it is done within the right parameters, it is good and it is wholesome. But the balance, there is a very thin line. There's a very thin line that has to be not mastered, but practiced.
Mhm, mhm.
There is a very thin line that has to be managed, and we take it into high consideration, because that line can become easily blurred. And we now begin to feel that because I have attained this level of mastery, then everybody's supposed to, so everyone's supposed to serve me. I'm at the head of the institution. Look at what I have done. Look what I've done for you. Look of how I've helped you. Look when you were in, and then I begin to find myself, and I expect people now must bow down to my whims and fancies. I've attained all that I need to attain. I've built, the institution. I've taken it from nothing, and look how I've, brought it to be what it is today. And then I begin to do that, not realizing that, as Garrett talked, about the ultimate corruption is when, we begin to fall into those practices that is not serving the ecosystem, and everybody has a place to serve, and no one is more important than the other within the ecosystem. And you rightfully said, even the sense of that term, a mastering self, that there's a misnomer to it, that it has to be managed. And going back to when, the difference between operation and projects,
But
realize that yeah,
you
Gary.
know,
Hmm.
yeah, what I think happens also as we look at the concept self mastery, I do believe that it's important for us to recognize that there's good and evil in the world.
Yes, yes.
And it's also important for us to recognize that there are people that are at home with evil, meaning that they're quite comfortable with evil and this is what they want to master.
Hmm.
We can go into the history books and we can talk about a range of different, things to represent all of that. They're quite comfortable with that. Now, on the other side, you have good, and there's no harm in wanting to master good principles that represents the collective. So
Right.
to rise up and to demonstrate mastery in these areas, good. Some of the challenges that we can see, however, and I'm having is that very often you find that good systems are penetrated by evil.
Hmm.
And I say that against the backdrop there are evil that understands the good system more than those who are in the good systems. And they're shaking the foundation of it. I know we're talking in parables here, but you understand what I'm talking about. And there is where we have a concern because here is where an institution is set up. And you trust the system because the history of the system has shown that the system has been set up to work for the collective good of people. But there is where the figureheads within the institution, behind the scene, they're practicing principles that if it was known, you would have never associate yourself and other people, your kids and all that kind of stuff into it.
Hmm.
And we find this in religion, we find this in entertainment, we find this in sports, and it's a serious point of concern. All right. Um, the last point that I want to make on this is that there is a need for strong figureheads to stand up and to represent from a position of strength. And in those figureheads, we need to have the type of leaders and that have that kind of self mastery and self control that can really give the guidance that is necessary. They're unshakable in their belief, And we have a few of them out there, all right, that can really give the representation for the collective. Self-mastery can be corrupt. That's the point that I want to make clear. It has two coins, and if we don't see it from those two coins, we may be setting ourselves up for failure. The world has good and evil. So just because you have on one side, persons are planning to master self to do good, there are those who are planning to master self to do evil in the world. I've learned to accept that as a way of life. But I think it was a healthy conversation, and I do believe that what I've learned in life is that life has so many ups and downs. It has turns, and you want to be conscious as a great leader. The only way you could lead your flock is by ensuring that you are fully aware of what exists in the world. And a leader with good intention is to be aware and to ensure that you're building into your ecosystem the process that can help your flock to navigate some of the challenges that we have in the world. And I just want to be a little bit more transparent, and then I'm going to come to Shivani here. Many years ago, I've made a conscious decision that I will not allow any of my kids to be exposed to certain type of religious teaching unless there's an adult figure to supervise that process. And I mean a parent or some close guardians. Why? Because I've learned very early, I just can't trust the system. And I know that I know things about the system that I can't trust. And here's where you have leaders that are supposed to be having a strong sense of self, that you just can't trust the ecosystem. And with all the revelations that is taking place now in the world, it tells me that my concern and my efforts to protect young ones was justified. And that's as transparent that I'm going to get today. We'll expand on this perhaps as time progresses. Shivani, I know you'd want to say something.
Yeah, you're looking at me and you know that I want to get involved in this.
I know.
So well done. You know your stakeholders here, right? Good. Now, something that both of you all were speaking about, Peter as well, and the self-mastery. I think the failure really happens when we see things as being linear. You know, you do X, then you do Y, then you do Z, and then you reach the top. So that's linear, you know, the linear way, LINEAR, right? You step by step by step. Because I mean, that's what we do it, right? From preschool right up to university, right up to life after, in marriage, everything. That's how you talk, right? You see, it's a step by step, a linear. And then, so eventually you believe that if it's linear, you will reach. You'll reach where you're going to go. And that's how you're trained. The schooling system train you like that. Now, I have a total problem with that, right? Total problem. But I can't talk like that, right? So I'll just say challenge that I have, right? It is a challenge.
Yeah.
To try to solve it. So that's why you all helping me to solve it. So it's a linear way, right? It's a linear way of thinking. And leaders, that's how leaders also think as well. You know, it's linear, right? And not talking about it from a, cycle and a circle. You know, everything is supposed to be connected. And that's why you would see that you train in one particular subject matter, and then you have to just be really good in that subject matter. But you wouldn't hear me talking like that at all. And persons will think I'm crazy, that I may interact with. You may say, but you know facilities management, or you know project management, or you know IT, but what you want to learn this now, or you want to learn that now? You're a jack of all trades, you don't know anything. But then I tell people, look at it as a cycle. Everything is connected to help you to make your trade better. And when that is what all of you all here are talking about as well. To become a self-master, I use the word, I don't want to use the word self-practitioner. If you want to become a self-practitioner, understand the whole ecosystem, understand every aspect of your product. Don't look at it as a linear way of thinking. when you look at it as a linear way, I sit down and I have conversations with people. I say, change that, change that. But I think it will eventually change when people start to talk more. You know, you have the conversations and it will talk more. You'll talk more about it. So those are just and project management really teaches you now. Even I have discussed things with project management people, and I will find that they are very linear in their way, right? You do 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know what happens? The project fails. 99% when you think like that, the project will fail because you're not seeing it as a whole, as a whole. That's why the whole project management body of knowledge itself is changing as well, and to take these power skills into conversation now, because you have to teach people differently. We always have to analyze, why are you like that? You know, Peter will continuously say, who am I? How have I developed? I have developed because of training, because of my teachings, because of who I've interacted with. So interact with different people, learn different things, and practice will change. Your practice will change.
Great points, Shivani. And I just want to follow up on some things that Peter would have said earlier on also. And I want to begin by saying this. We are lost as a people when we stray away from the manual, when we stray away from that master plan. And what is the manual? A business, you have your business plan, all right? Building contractor, you have your builder's drawing and you have your prototypes. I think people in life, our manual is, we might want to say the Quran, we might want to say the Bible, we might want to say the various books. It's a manual. And what I'm seeing is that a true understanding of the manual itself, it really helps us to be anchored in how we manage ourselves in alignment with the project outcome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It keeps us in check
Yeah.
because that tells us the parameters in which we should be working in. And when we deviate from that, there lies problems, become a runaway train. And again, we can see a lot of persons who are in a position of strength who comes over as though they're at that point of self-mastery. They have become a runaway train, even as they project their element of self-mastery. And I want to give a graphic example. Again, there are great leaders in the religious world that had a particular interpretation of what scripture is saying. And today we hear that they are making statement that they have evolved from that understanding. And it's the evolution of understanding that today is putting them into what you call self-sabotage. It's the evolution because they have moved away from the script, the manual, and they are now leaning on self-understanding. Perhaps the self-mastery has evolved to some degree of goddess way of thinking that is causing that self-sabotage. The challenge that I have here also again is that self-sabotage is not only affecting self, it has affected the entire ecosystem where you don't have trust in the system any longer. And we will continue to expand on this as more information comes out. We will talk factually. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, what we do understand that self-mastery, I'm beginning to not like the term based
Influence is the greatest teacher. Influence. I'm glad. Influence.
People get scared because you can self-sabotage, right? No. I think that it's about taking ownership, Peter.
Yes.
And it's about ensuring that you're pure and you're safe. you maintain that certain, but you stick to the manual. I think when you deviate.
Taking responsibility over self. I think that's a more work.
I got you, Peter.
Taking responsibility over self. Also take into consideration that, as you say, that we are in an ecosystem, that there is good and that there is evil. And then we're going to understand that whatever we deem as evil, we using a term that you use from time to time, we mitigate. We make
Yes.
adequate preparation to understand that we have to put those safeguards in place as well. That when that whatever we consider to be evil, that we take, there is a preparation when that does happen. And we, from all of human history, we do understand that people fail, and we cannot put our trust in any person, in any human system, because it is prone to fail. So when it fails, we can't be devastated, because that is what happens from time to time. And with that being said, we have to also take into consideration that when we see failures taking place, how we respond to those, to human failures, is also a judge of us as well. How do I respond to another person's failure? Because the judgment that we use and apply to another person's failure, what will happen is that it reverberates, because that judgment, if we are not I wouldn't say empathetic, to understand that it is a human being that is prone to fail, and we cannot be even too harsh to that failure, because I'm prone on my best day, I'm prone to make mistakes. Maybe not that one, but sooner or later I might find myself in a situation as well that I'm experiencing some kind of failure. So the being a good practitioner over self is to understand that, hey, I'm a human. There is something about the human nature, the human psyche, the human person, that makes him, he's just one step away from failure. And it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It will happen. It will happen. To what degree, we want to make sure that we put we put systems, checks and balance in place, that it doesn't become so bad that I cannot be restored from it. So the mastery of self, the taking responsibility of self, is to understand that the human person is prone to failure. And so this is why now we do go into the whole concepts of personal life master planning, family life master planning, community master planning, because I have to realize that I have to bring other people into my life that will correct me before it get that bad. And I have to also put myself at a place where I am willing to take correction, so that I do not wander off by myself into a zone, into a silo of selfish self-centeredness, where I become a danger to myself and to everyone around me at the same time too. But this program, and let me just close with this, because you also mentioned too about manuals. And when we did, whatever the manual is that we have that is serving us, don't change it. Don't make any drastic. You have a master plan going. You have done all the research, you have done all the mitigations to have it for what it is. Unless it is something that is going to prove that master plan needs to ascend it to a greater level, don't just change things randomly out of just out of a sense of feeling that it ought to, or it doesn't justify again. And this can be said in so many ways, whether it is the constitution of foundational elements, whether it is where life is, because using the term master again, we have to understand that there's a history that get us to where we are. There is a reason why the sun rises in the morning and sets in the night. There are certain laws, there are certain concepts and principles that governs how life works. And there are some things that if we tamper with certain elements where life is concerned, there are repercussions. There are repercussions. And the way how the ecosystems, the tenets that holds the ecosystems together, we cannot tamper with those without having some kind of a backup against us.
Great. Great points, and I love it. A couple of things that I want to say as we begin to give our closing remarks. Self-mastery, it is a topic that we need to amplify some more. And one of the reasons I'm saying this, for me, self-mastery is you first of all asking yourself who you are. You asking yourself, what is your purpose? You asking yourself, how can I fulfill purpose in a manner that truly allows me to serve? And it's about you rising to the occasion to self-actualize in this regard. Divorced from this, you're just going to be in life in a free fall. No sense of purpose, no sense of direction, no sense of, what life should be, because you're just existing. So to bring yourself to that point, to master who you are, it is a subject matter for us to have more conversation on. However, we need to be wise enough to recognize that whatever ecosystem you're building out to help people to attain mastery, whether it's in business or whatever that is, there should be the human element, all right? That element that wants to nurture and not destroy, to empower and not bring down, to heal and not to hurt. And I think when we can master ourselves to that extent, where we are sowing good for the collective development, and we can see self-mastery from that face of self-mastery, I think that is what makes life so much more enjoyable and exciting. And I do believe there's a lot of good people out there, so we can't give up on the good people that wants to see good in the world. But while we have those people, we should never forget that evil is lurking right on the other side. And this reminds me of the biblical truth. And let me talk about it just a little bit as I wrap up. I could recall that Christ, as he was going through all of his testing times and all of these different things, he was the moral guy, Christ when he walked the earth, and the devil appeared, the devil say, I can take away all of your challenge and all of your fear, and I can give you everything that you need, right? All you need to do is to bow down to me. And Christ was unpolluted. He was unshakable in his belief in what he was doing. And I don't know if we have that type of leaders today, but I'm going to be naive and I'm going to be wishful in my thinking that we can have leaders in the world today that can stand up to the devil and say, you're not going to tempt me. I'm going to be anchoring my true sense of self. and I'm going to do good in the world. I stop there for now. Over to you guys. I'd love to have your closing remarks.
If I should just
Go ahead.
realize what you just said, Gary, um, and if we should think about Christ from the standpoint of person who have never made a mistake, who is what was totally resolved in fulfilling the task that he was designed to flawlessly, if we should look at it that way. But what we do recognize with even the Christ is that he developed a system that ensured that he maintained that as much as he was God in human form, but he himself developed systems that safeguarded his purpose. There's a reason why he chose a collection of individuals and surrounded himself with individuals that helped him in his task. There's a reason why he, even within those collection, that there were layers of friendships. So out of the we heard about him having 12 disciples, but it was more. It was at one time it says that 70 left him, right? So it means that he had a lot much more than those which we know of. But even within those 12 that we know that out of those 12 he had 3 that he had as his close friends, that everywhere he went he took those 3 with him. But then he had 1 that when he was dying, he looked on that 1 and he said, look, my mother, take care of her. And then he looked at his mother and says, I'm no longer here. He's now responsible for you. So for us to succeed, we will not succeed. Personal becoming a practitioner, a person who does well, I don't want to set ourselves up here, is to recognize that we can't do good all by ourselves. We cannot. We're not going to succeed a mile down the road if we think that we're going to master self all. It's not. We're not going to last, because what happens? We becomes fatigued. We becomes tired. On our best day, we lose out on our strength, and it is at that time we're going to need support. We're going to need somebody who is looking over our shoulder from time to time and say, you better not make that move. You better not make that decision. We're going to always need somebody to support us. And when we branch off by ourselves, that is where the danger comes. So becoming a practitioner over self and taking charge and being responsible for self, is to understand that no man is an island, no man stands alone, and we need support systems. And then we need to listen to those support systems of individuals, pay adequate attention to them when they are, tapping us and letting us know that, look, please don't do that. Don't make that decision. And when we have that ecosystem and we're a part of that ecosystem for the greater good of the ecosystem, then we can have a sense of reliance. We can actually make it. You asked the question, Gary, is there such a leader? Is there such a leader who can we can take as a good there are millions and millions of individuals that we can call their names. We see them even if we should even use the religious community, where there are individuals who have stand up to their integrity. We can call their names, and it's not that these individuals were perfect, but they did what they said that they were gonna do, and they have left the legacy. Martin Luther King is one of those individuals. Nelson Mandela is one of those individuals. Miles Monroe are some of those individuals. And the list goes on and on. History is filled with more persons who have succeeded in their charge more than those who don't. It's just that when those bad news tend to reverberate even greater, but there are, so many that we can use as good examples, and that we can also, take as a guide to say, because they did it, and to find out how they did it. And what it usually mean is that they are not standing on the mountain as if they're all that by themselves, but they have a system that supports them in their charge.
All right. Thanks for that share, Peter. Um, Shivani?
Great. So, what comes to mind always with self practitioners and project management practitioners? It's all about processes, right? Yes, we keep speaking about processes, but we are also governed by principles. So, it's principles plus processes that will equal the self that you want to practice, that you have to continuously practice. In project management, we preach this. And it is a life story as well, because we are saying that life is a series of projects. You have processes to follow from initiation to closeout, but you have to govern by principles. Principles of value driven stewardship, there are many different leadership. There are many different principles that must govern. So if you think about it in life, you have processes to do, but it is governed by principles. So that's my closing remarks. Really, principles plus processes equal self practitioners, but it must be continuous. It is a continuous thing. And don't think that the process cannot change. The process can change. And that is what we have to remember over and over. Things can change. The principles may not change, but conversation for another day.
The process may change.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What I'm taking away at the end of the day, you need your manual. Your manual is your anchor. It's your guide. It's your, something to fall back on if you find that you're deviating from the plan. So I take all the views, and I just want to again conclude by saying that I want to encourage persons to reach out to us. And of course, we have these type of conversation because our focus also is about nurturing leaders. It's about nurturing people that understand themselves. And for us in leadership and business, we are fully aware that if you don't understand who you are, if you're flowing in lack of limitation and doubts and fear, it's going to undermine how you function as a leader in business and in life. So we tend to have these type of conversation to really open eyes and give you a different perspective on things. We can sit here and we can talk academics all the time, but we want to talk about some social issues. You want to talk about perhaps some of the soft issues that we just don't talk about enough. I know this because I've worked with so many different persons in business and otherwise. And, a manager may say, hey, I have provided this training program, and my team just didn't gravitate to it. And one of the things I continue to emphasize, people never go beyond their sense of self. And if that person is flowing in doubts and in fear, it doesn't matter how much you try to empower them, unless you get them past that point that they're at, they will not relate to the information you want them to relate to, the way you want them to relate to it. So these conversations are an essential part of management. They're an essential part of leadership. And it's applicable to the body of Christ. It's applicable to business. It's applicable to sports. It's applicable to those ecosystems. With that being said, I trust you would have enjoyed today's conversation. I know Paul and Peter, they are now talking about self-practitioner. is not far off from self mastery, because to master anything, you have to be a faithful practitioner of whatever you're trying to attain mastery in. So I do love how they coin their terms of reference, and that's another reason why I like this platform, because these guys can become. I thought I was creative in coining terms, but my two colleagues are very much the same, and that's what I like. Their originality comes out in how they relate to different issues, and that's an essential part of thinking for yourself. And I truly love that. All right. So with that being said, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and spending some time with me today to have this conversation on the concept of self mastery. Again, don't give up on yourself. Get your master plan. Get your manual for life. If you're going through life and you don't have your manual, all right, for where you want to go and how you're going to get there, the possibility exists that you may encounter some challenge, because even when you have that manual, you're going to have some challenges. But what's going to make your journey a little bit more easier is when you have good mentors and good coach and a good support system behind you to guide you in that process. In this case, I'm talking about good leaders. And be aware of sheep, or a wolf in sheep clothing, right? Be aware of it, because not everybody that comes out to say I want to support you to get to the promised land, they really want to get you there. So just be aware. So those are just my last word. I want to thank everyone from across the world who have taken the time to listen into this program, and those who will be listening to the replay. Again, I want to thank you, and we welcome you as a part of the community. All right. So with that being said, I want to thank you all again.